Hi everyone. Now, before we get into this week's video, I just thought I would jump in front of the camera very quickly just to say a massive thank you to everyone who has subscribed. We've just recently passed 1,000 subscribers, which I am massively grateful for. When you consider that this is a channel that is literally about watching paint dry, I think hitting 1,000 subscribers is pretty good going. So thank you to everyone who has subscribed. Thank you as well to all those who leave a comment, anyone who leaves a like, and just generally engages with the videos, as it really helps to get the channel to reach new people. So thank you all again, and without any further delay, let's get into this week's video. In this video, we will be going back to Masters of the Universe with this statue of Teela. She is printed in 1/8 scale. I have printed her hollow. I used water washable resin. I printed her on my Elegoo Saturn II. She was designed by LA Figures, and as I say, she's in 1/8 scale, so she stands around sort of 25 centimeters high. She's been fully prepped. I've sanded it. I have noticed after priming it, so obviously I've primed grey on the figure, black for the base. I have noticed I've got a couple of divots which I missed on the arm, so I might have to go back and resand those before I paint. But otherwise, she's good to go. She is held together with an elastic band. All the parts are still separate, which will enable it to be painted a lot easier. I think it should be fairly straightforward model to paint. I haven't tried doing a white costume before, so that's going to be something new. I've got a couple of ideas how I'm going to go about that. But on the whole, really enjoying the sculpt. So yeah, let's get cracking and get some paint on her. So starting off, I'm going to need to think through how exactly I want to tackle this, because we have flesh colours next to white, next to gold. So these are very strong colours with the gold next to very light colours. Now I think what I'm going to do is start off with the gold, because I think it's easier to do all the gold work, the metallic work, and then come in with the white and the lighter colours. If I started with the lighter colours, I'm bound to get a little bit of gold onto those, and that'd be a nightmare to try and clean up. So basically I'm starting with the strongest, darkest colour, which is the gold. So I'm going to use some Retributor armour from Citadel, which I think is the best gold on the market. And I'm going to start painting in all the armour. Now she's got armour pieces on her head and also her arms as well. After that gold has been applied, I'm now going to use Agrax Earthshade as a wash, and I'm going to apply this all over the gold parts, paying particular attention to try and get it into the recesses. So we have some nice defined lines. And this will take a little while to dry, but it'll just make the gold look a little bit more interesting and have some of those details more highly defined. So with that wash now dried, what we're going to do is tidy up some of this gold. So we're going to take the original Retributor armour and we're going to do a dry brush all over the gold pieces. So what I'm doing here is obviously maintaining a nice shiny look on the main flat parts, but the recesses will continue to be shaded in. So I've just put the pieces together just very quickly just to make sure that all the gold is matching and it's fairly uniformed, which it is, so I'm quite happy with that. You can see the combination of that dry brushing and obviously the wash step I did before has given it a kind of an aged look. So it's a little bit of a rusty, slightly dirty gold, which is what I was going for. Now I could take this up a notch now and do another dry brush of silver over it, which is what I was going to do, but I actually think I'm going to leave it there. I think that is the look that I'm most happy with. So we're going to keep it as it is, and we're going to move on to the next step, which we will do now. I'm going to take some Mephiston red next, and I'm going to use this to paint in the hair. I'm going to use a wash of Caribou Crimson next, which is a nice dark deep red,
And I'm going to apply this all over the hair. Next up is a dry brush using some Parasite Brown. This is going to be across all the hair, just to start to bring the colour up to a more sort of slight beigey orangey colour. That is followed with a second dry brush using some Troll Slayer Orange. It is skin tones next, and for this I like to mix up my own colours. So what I've done here is mixed up about a third Chikara Orange to 2/3 Deck Tan. Now this has given me a nice pale pink colour. Just get myself a brush. Obviously you want to make sure whenever mixing paints that you mix ideally enough. You always want more than you think you're going to use. And you also want to make sure that those colours are mixed in very evenly. Okay, so hopefully, if we go on the face where I haven't got gold all over it, I should be able to see quite a nice tone. So it's probably going to take a couple of coats because it is still quite thin paint. But I think that should work quite well. And after a couple of coats, this is what the final result is. So I'm quite pleased with the colour. Now, the good thing with mixing up your own colour as I did means you can control the intensity of it. Now, I wanted her to be quite pale because she is a redhead, so I didn't want her to have the typical He-Man tan that he has sports. Again, if you wanted to go darker, you just simply add more orange to the colour mix. So what I'm going to do now is put a bit more realism into these shades. So I'm going to put some Reichland Flesh Shade all over the tones. So I'm just going to put this literally all over every part of the skin. And then what I'm going to do is come in with a sponge, and I'm going to sponge most of it back off. Because all I'm trying to do here really is get a tint to the skin. So I want it to run into all the recesses. And then it's a case of coming in with a sponge, preferably a makeup sponge. They tend to work the best. And just getting off most of this. Next up, I'm going to take some Cadian Flesh Tone and I'm going to do a dry brush over all these flesh parts. So these will be all over the face and all over the other parts as well. Now, just to finish off the skin tones, I've got my box of soft pastels out and I've selected quite a dark pink colour. And all you need to do is simply shave off a few flakes off the pastel. And then you want to get yourself a nice dry paintbrush, preferably one that is a little bit raggedy. It's not one because you're going to use for painting particularly. And all I'm going to do is start to work this into some of the recesses of the skin tone. So here, just start working it into the knee recesses just to bring out some of the detail. Work it in around. Sort of a stabbing motion. And then blow away the excess, and you should have a little bit of extra sort of detail, realism. And let's do a bit more on the back, for example. Just basically anywhere you want to bring some more definition and a bit of tonality. It's done. It's time to start putting in some more of the details into the face. So to start with, I'm going to put in the lips. I'm going to use corn red for this. It's eyebrow time next. Now, interestingly, in the cartoon, her eyebrows were a lot darker than her hair. So I'm going to follow that same scheme, and I'm going to use some Rhinox hide. So I did use that dark pastel on the face as well that I used on the rest of the skin, and just put a little bit of blush around the cheeks and also around the eyes. Oh, and also the collarbone too. Next thing I'm going to do is take some black, and I'm going to take my size 0 brush because I'm going to need some nice steady handwork for this, and I'm going to paint in the eyebrows. Sorry, not the eyebrows, the eyelashes. Now to paint in the white of the eyes, I'm going to use Administratum Grey. As I always say, you don't want to paint in the white with a white, you want to use an off-white or the lightest grey you've got essentially. Next up is the eyes, and for this I'm going to use some Thousand Suns Blue by Citadel, which is a slightly sort of turquoisey blue. Looking at the reference material, Teela has blue eyes, so all I'm going to do here is paint in 2 circles, approximately the centre of each eye. Next up, we will be painting in the pupils, and for that we just use some solid black, and we just want to make a small round circle in the middle of each eye. And then finally, if you're feeling particularly brave, add a tiny dot of pure white into the top corner of each eye. And that is the face all finished and painted up. So you can see that dot of white into the eyes just adds a little bit of sort of fake reflection, if you like. Now, another optional step is to take a little bit of satin varnish, and I've watered this down a little bit, so I don't want it too strong. And I'm going to run this across each of the eyes and also the lips. Now for the white parts of the costume, I'm going to start off with a layer of deck tan. Then it's bold titanium white over all those parts we've just done in deck tan, and you kind of need probably 2 to 3 coats of this. Turning to the boots, I'm going to start off using some Mornfang brown and just basing in the majority of the boot. Then it's a coat of Rhinox hide over the heel and the sole. Next up is an all-over wash using Agrax Earthshade, which is a nice dark brown wash. So we want to concentrate on all of the brown leather part of the boot. Now, after that wash has dried, the boots look nice and shiny, give it a bit more of a leather effect. What I'm going to do is one final dry brush over the brown though, and I'm going to mix Screamer Pink with some of that Mornfang brown, and again it's just going to give me a slight sort of burgundy reddish brown, just to pick out some of the details and just slightly tint the colour. For the fur parts of the boots, I'm going to start off using some deck tan. That is then followed up with a dry brush using some bold titanium white from Pro Acryl. Now for the sword, I'm going to start off with a basic gunmetal silver, and I'm just going to apply that all over. That is then followed with a dry brush using some Runefang steel, and I'm just going to do this with a medium-sized dry brush over the entire thing. Now using some thin down black, I'm just going to do a recess into the handle. Turning to the shield now, I'm going to start off with a base coat using this Warp Lock Bronze from Citadel Paints. Next up, I'm going to take some Balthasar Gold, which despite its name is actually more of a bronze than a gold. So I'm just going to take my medium size dry brush and just do a dry brush over the whole thing. So I want the shield to start looking a bit battered. That's followed by a second dry brush using some Evil Chrome. Next I'm going to take some gunmetal and I'm going to do more of a stippling motion and just kind of concentrate it on certain areas that I want to pick the detail up on. So like these rivets going around the shield and then sort of around the edge. Then finally, just to finish off the shield, taking some nice shiny Runefang steel, I'm just going to work in all the little scratches that are sculpted into the shield. So let's take this one up here. And one here, and just keep working just around the model. Now it's time to start tackling the base. So what I'm going to do is a simple Castle Grayskull style for the floor, and then obviously we've got this sort of rotten tree at the back here, and obviously we'll do that a tree colours. So let's do the base to begin with. Now this is just going to be dry brushing all the way. We're going to start with Caliban Green, then up to Wire Flesh. We're going to use Vallejo's Medium Olive, Vallejo's Goblin Green, and then back to Citadel's Warpstone Glow, and then Moot Green. So I'm going to run literally from left to right, bringing up the colours to the brightest green. So let's start with some of this Caliban Green. So what you want to do is take your dry brush, any brush that's got nice long stiff bristles, and you want to get some paint on there. You don't want to get too much on because obviously this is a dry brush. Now for anyone who hasn't dry brushed before, just a quick refresher. You simply take off the majority of the paint onto a paper towel like so. Then you want to sort of test it. You can test it against one of these boards or even against your thumb, which is what I generally tend to do, which is why I'm always covered in paint. So once you get to the point where you're happy with how much has been left behind, then you simply take the model and then you start brushing over it. Now what this does is it leaves the crevices and the cracks nice and dark whilst bringing up the surfaces. So this is why I always paint bases like this black, because all the shadows are effectively painted in for me. So I'm using the primer to do the work for me. Okay, time to paint in the tree, and I'm going to do exactly the same type of method, so dry brushing all the way. I'm going to be starting off with some Rhinox hide. Next dry brush is Mournfang Brown. then it is a dry brush using some leather brown. Now I'm not going to go too crazy with this one because it is quite a light colour, so I'm just going to sort of concentrate it more around the sort of the tips of the branches. And then it's one final dry brush using some Bela brown. I'm just going to use this right on the tips of some of the branches. And with that final dry brush on the tree there, that is the base all done. So just need to put the model together now and I can come back and show you the final result. So that is a wrap on this Teela statue. This was a nice fun one to paint. A little bit difficult to paint at times because white is always a tricky colour to paint, and obviously skin tones and faces are never the easiest things to do. I'm quite pleased with how the skin tones came out, particularly the pastel work done on the face. And it goes to show you don't need to overcomplicate how you paint skin tones to get quite a nice effect. Once again, dry brushing is the way to go forward with all the work on the base. And she'll be a great addition to my He-Man Masters of the Universe collection. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something out of that, and I will see you in the next video. But before that, she's going to join the rest of the gang.